right, so we're actually kind of in the heartbeat of the Callaway ECPC today. I'm going to have him introduce himself, Joe Toulon.
Yep.
But I'm going to introduce himself, what he does with Callaway, and then we'll talk about where we are, what we're doing, and actually he can talk about what's going on today. It's pretty cool what's going on today. So, okay,
absolutely.
So introduce yourself first.
Yep. So Joe Toulon, Director of Pro Tour.
Okay.
Recently in that role. Before then, I was the manager of the PGA Tour,
right,
and then the Odyssey rep on the PGA Tour for a few years. So
yeah, so I knew you were with Odyssey because we dealt with Odyssey out there on tour. You were doing that, and then you just manage all the players out there on tour. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay. And tell them where we are. Tell those at home where we are right now.
Yeah. So this is the build room inside of ECPC. So a performance center where the best players in the world, VIPs, they come in to get fit for our latest and greatest equipment. Work with our reps here and make sure the equipment is really suited to their game.
Right. So they'll go out there, they'll hit balls, they'll work on their, even from putting, chipping, pitching, the full swing, the whole thing here.
Yep.
And they come in here and they're gearing in the club exactly for them.
Yep.
And these players, a majority of these players that come in here, I mean, in fact, we have Adam Hadwin here today, correct? And he's out here and he may be running in and out of here when we're with the build today as we're doing this, so you might see him behind us. But these guys are fine-tuned to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the tools of their trade. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, because I know this is exciting for you. I know that.
Yeah.
But when you're talking that level and these level of players, you're talking crazy levels. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when we started really thinking about our job and how we can do better as performance reps out there, we dug into all the stats, all the tour analytics, and we really started to understand just how much of a game of inches golf is, especially at the highest level.
Right.
I mean, the difference between losing your tour card and getting to the tour championship is so minute. Yeah. So we've made huge investments in the technology and what we do and what we offer our tour players. Right. On our tour truck, we have a loft lie machine that's camera based. I don't even want to begin to guess how much that costs.
Exactly.
But it measures loft and lie on wedges, irons to a thousandth of a degree.
Thousandths of a degree. That's crazy.
And that's insane. But when they leave the tour truck, our players know I am absolutely dialed in. There's no guessing on, is this the right loft lie on this club? It absolutely is, because they see it on the screen and we're very precise. And same things for like loft and lie on drivers. Obviously I think the gearheads know that a 9-degree driver may not be exactly 9 degrees.
Exactly right.
It could be 8.7, it could be 9.3. And so when a player has a club that they love and they're looking for a backup, we got to hit that exact loft.
Number.
So there's some variance and some tolerance in there, but it comes down to being that precise on tour.
And let's talk about this for a second though too, because we talked about this last year. We did this in here last year, and we really kind of talked about John Rahm a little bit. And one thing that was brought up at home, and kind of surprised him, is they were talking about getting him a new head every year. He went from from a certain head, then he went into the smoke, and then when he put I'm sure going to the elite this year and so on. Yep. But they're talking about he had the same shaft for like 5 years. Yeah. Is that right? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So
not anymore.
Yeah. No. I knew that. That's why I kind of brought this up. Exactly. He changed it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. So talk a little bit about that, about the way they feel and about the way this is, because I know a lot of the people, I fit them at home and they'll get new clubs every year, but I kind of keep that same shaft. The motor of that club, I call it kind of the engine of the club, is that shaft. And I kind of keep that same feel with them because they really like that. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, would you?
Yeah, I think it's very important when you're trying to fit guys into new equipment and get those conversions into the latest product to remove as many variables as we can.
I agree.
And obviously the shaft is a big deal. So if we can keep that the same, and most players want to do that, and we want to do that, we can really start to understand what this head is doing versus the head that they were previously using. And so Rahm is an extreme example of that. He used the same shaft, all the way through college up until this year, which is probably, too extreme one way. I think he started to realize and look back and go, all right, I've gotten a lot faster and my swing has changed a little bit. So probably should have looked at that. But, we also don't hate that, because it's very easy for us to really determine what's working with the new equipment versus what he liked about the old equipment. So yeah, when you can reduce the variables and with a shaft, or make sure the head's the exact same weight and loft and all that, then we can really understand what the differences are.
And that, which is kind of interesting, because I think a lot of people at home think that you bring a player in here like an Adam Hadwin is today, and we're getting this whole new shaft, all these new shafts and irons and woods. It's not.
No.
Because they've got a very specific feel, and they got a very specific, and you guys will sit there at home and call it kick points and so on. That's old age things, but they're getting feels in the shaft.
Yeah.
So they know what they like to feel, they know what they like in looks and so on. And I'm telling you right now, and I know from the years I played, you set down a driver and the way that thing looks, it's got to sit a certain way. It looks like it's a 1/10 of a degree closed. It's no good for you. Am I right?
No, I mean 100%. There's players out there, and they're not necessarily using our equipment, but we test with them all the time. But Aaron Badley, he's a guy who loves to see the driver look so shut. And if you put that into
anybody else's hands, it'd go crazy.
No chance.
Yeah.
Patrick Cantlay is on the other side of the spectrum
100%.
there, where he's got his hand set back. So he needs that thing laying wide open. So
Yep.
anyone else puts that driver down, it's like, I mean, this is going that way.
Exactly.
But hit with his hands. So
Exactly.
all those little things are very important things to have that conversation with pros or understand what they're looking for.
Right.
Because, yeah, the first thing they do is set it down. And if it doesn't look good, they're not going to hit it.
Love it.
That's step one.
So talk about this for a second, because we kind of walked down this trail here, and then we'll talk a little more in here. So Adam comes in today, okay? So and I've been out here a lot. I've gone through the fittings out here a lot. I think I've done it for 20 years, almost 20 years, whatever it is. And look, I've seen Sergio out here. I've seen Adam. I mean, guys like John Rahm out here. I've seen a lot of people out here at different times, okay? Tell me like what a typical day for them would be when they came out here. Because I don't think the people at home have any idea what that is, okay?
Yeah.
So Adam's in here today. Tell me what a typical day for him would be out here.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was actually working on a kind of a document last night on what that looks like, because it's always evolving what we want to do. We're always offering more services and detail on what we do. But lately what we do is the first of all, we understand what their need and what they're looking for. So that's important. But if they're coming in for just fine tuning or something like that, we always like to start with what we call a performance combine. Okay. So we have a set number of shots that we want them to hit, and we want them to alternate the clubs that they're using each time, because obviously you stand there and hit 3 7-irons in a row, you're going to groove that swing no matter what.
When I came out here and got fit, and this was, I think, 7 or 8 years ago, and I was probably longer than that now. I say that, I'm getting older. But I came out here and got fit with the whole fitting system, and I never forget this. I pulled out a shaft, I hit it, and the third time they took it right out of my hand. And I said, well, I think I'm starting to like that. And the fitter said, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
You'll time yourself. Good players will time that shaft.
100%.
So you'll never want to hit it more than 2 or 3 times, because they'll start timing the shaft.
Yeah.
And grab me another one.
Yeah.
And they'll do the same thing.
100%.
And even more. Guys like Adam had one even more.
They're great players. They got great feel. They're going to make it work. But we don't want them to have to make it work.
Exactly.
We want it to work for them.
Exactly.
So we'll do this combine where they'll hit 40 shots, and they'll go through usually irons, wedges, but we're looking for dispersion and gapping issues and spin rates and things like that. So we want to make sure they have a good gap throughout the club in terms of the carry distances they're going, and then also left to right dispersion. So we do things with obviously strength and loft if we need to, or looking at lie angle even. And so that's step one. It's almost like a tune up and make sure that it's working for them for what they're doing right now. And then a lot of times we'll bring them into the putter lab here, get them on Quintic. We have all their data from past visits here. And so we'll go through that and understand what's working, what's not working. Obviously, if they're trying new equipment, that factors in. That's a good amount of time. What we're doing with Adam is basically getting him into the new Elite driver in Fairway Woods. So that's important. It's great to do it here because we have this room that we can do it quickly. But then we do things over lunch if they're here for a full day. We have trend reports and all this data from tournament data that we get and that we analyze, and we have a whole tour analytics department. So we put reports together to talk through and give them reports over lunch and say, hey, this is where we're seeing your strengths are this year, and here's maybe an opportunity, an area of opportunity that you can improve on.
Oh, really?
So we talk through. I mean, we measure over 500 different metrics on tour, and we have a really good understanding of where they maybe struggled that year and where they've had success.
So now, are you saying that by equipment with them, or are you saying that just in general? I mean, because
Both.
there's there's 2 ways.
Yeah.
Because these guys could there's a mental game out there, obviously. 90% mental, the other 10% is mental. As we say.
Correct.
We always laugh about that. So you're talking to both on that. That's
Absolutely.
So you're being a coach too with them.
We're not necessarily, we don't want to step on coaches'
I know,
toes or
understand that, but
anything like that.
Right.
But we're almost identifying like, hey, your high water mark, your best finish in the strokes gain approach category has been 33rd, and this year you were 88th. So let's dive into what that is, and we'll basically say, okay, to front pins from 120 yards, you're losing shots. Why is that? And we can dive into, all right, do we need to look at maybe the gapping of the wedges? Do we need to look at a golf ball and make sure, are you spinning this thing off the front of the green, or what is there something that we can pick up on so we can make better decisions on how to better, tailor your equipment for you?
Because that's interesting. Because I was out here. I think this was I think it was 2 years ago maybe, and I was out here. Alexander was here one day. I was here, and he was just doing a ball fitting. 100% ball fitting. Now I know he's from around here, so he can come out here a little bit more often. Made it a little easier for him, but he went 100% doing a ball fitting. That's even a big deal, isn't it?
That's huge. I mean, that's where we want to start with.
Right.
If that's the one piece of equipment that is the same for every shot you hit, so it's got to fit a lot of different parts of the.
I think a lot of people don't realize that at home is amount of time. How much time do you think you'd spend, or tell them a little bit about what a ball fitting entails with them too.
Yeah, so we do a lot of the similar things, performance combines, but we're really looking at a lot of different things. Ball flight, the window is an important part. When they hit the shot, they look up. Is that ball in the proper window? Because the aerodynamics of the golf ball, the cover, we can change things with different golf balls to make sure it's in that window. Spin rate's obviously very important. That's something that It's got to be very versatile. We want something that is going to work around the greens and spin a lot, but also fit a specific, if you're looking for 2,400 spin off a driver, we want to make sure that works for that. So we start with the ball because we can do things with the other equipment to make sure, let's say it's great on the irons and we have to do something different on a driver to make sure it's optimized throughout the bag. We can do that with the driver. We'd like to start kind of around the greens and work ourselves back with that. But those are important days, and we can spend a lot of time on that, hitting all these different shots. Like I said, these performance combines, it's hitting full shots, but then it's also seeing what happens to the spin when you hit half shots, because you're not just going to stand up on every approach shot and hit a stock 7-iron. Rarely does that happen. You're always trying to do something with that golf ball, whether it's with the knockdown draw, whatever it is. We want to make sure that spin is still in an optimal window for you.
So let's talk just kind of from where we are here, kind of a little bit what this is in here. Because I know this, I'm not sure, this maybe looks like some people's garage out there. What it looks like in here. What do you have in here? What's set up in here for these guys?
We can basically build equipment from the ground up. We have, thousands of different shafts from all the different manufacturers that they stock us with. So we have everything we need. Obviously here you're seeing all the different weights that we need for, drivers from this year, last year, 2 years ago, just in case players are still using that. But yeah, we can build a set from the ground up here, and loft and lie and make those subtle adjustments. Like I said, with those combines that we do, if we come in here, we actually have an Excel sheet where we say, okay, your gap here is 13 yards, and then your gap between the 6 and 7 iron is 21 yards. So then we come here and we say, okay, where does that gap need? But we adjust it right here, and then we go back out and test it. So it's so important to have this room here. Because after we do the fitting and analyze all the data, we come in here, make the adjustments, go back here and fit. So that's super important. And a lot of the machinery is the same machines that you see here, Pro Tour, on our PGA Tour truck out there. There's a few more things that we have on our PGA Tour truck that, like I said, the machinery that is very, very precise. But yeah, it's so important to have a room like this to be able to make adjustments, go right back out on the range and hit some shots.
So Adam walks in today, he's walking through all this. Will he walk out this afternoon with a set of clubs? Will he go home will he leave with the set of clubs? Or
he'll leave with we ordered a fresh set of irons, which, obviously guys don't change all that often, but probably every year they want to start with fresh grooves. Wedges, we'll probably do a fresh set of wedges, which they will change obviously a little bit more often than that.
They'll wear those out.
Some guys a lob wedge every week or two.
We've said that because when I went up, Roger Cleveland was out here. And I did with Roger, I said how often do the guys change, especially their lob wedge in their bag? And he goes, do they really want to hear this at home? I said, yeah. And he goes, a lot of them will do it every month at least because they're wearing out those grooves. But that's how much they practice with that club.
You get a guy like Alex Noren who practices more than anybody out there on tour. It's damn near every week he's getting a new one.
So you're telling the guys at home that no, he's not doing it because he gets it for free. Yes, guys, they're sponsored. But it's wearing it out. It's the tool that's wearing out. He practices so much. He gets a feel, and obviously you need to do that because the guys go from 1 week where they're playing in different turf conditions, and then the next week the grass changes or it's softer, and so you get a feel for that through practice, and obviously, and then you think about sand and the different sand and different bunkers at different courses. So obviously bunker shots, if he hits a ton of them, that wears it out Short
faster.
game's the money maker. That's where they make their money in the short game. And they're wearing those in the lob wedge, especially the lob wedge, they wear that out.
But for Adam, this trip is mainly about the driver and the 3-wood elite. So so making sure he's in a good spot with that when he leaves here, because he's starting back up in Hawaii here in a few weeks, which it feels crazy to say because we just 3 weeks ago at RSM. Little break. Oh, nope, we're back on.
And that's why a lot of the guys come out this time of year, because we're in the second week of December, but they'll come out in December because it's in between. You used to get a couple months off on tour. They don't get it anymore. You used to get a couple months. No, you don't anymore. Are you going to be in Hawaii this year?
I will be in Hawaii.
Oh, there you go. That's not too tough.
It's a nice place to start the year.
Exactly.
I never complain about that.
It's nice. I like that a lot. But you'll see the guys come in here. They'll get most of them in here. Whether they're doing different types of fittings for that very reason.
And we encourage you guys to come out at this time of year, whether it's to go through the combine and make sure they're dialed for when they start the year. But it's also gearing up for the start of the year. And if they're coming from the East Coast, it's almost a natural stop to come here for a day before making the trip out to the islands. But we always like to baseline numbers here in more of a controlled environment, because that way, if they get off during the year, we know what their numbers should be.
Now, to tell them real quick at home, because this is very interesting also, and I know you can't really be as specific, but let's say he goes out on tour. Let's say he breaks a driver. He's up playing and driver snaps. He's a hitting driver, whatever. He's out there. Tell what will happen when he's on tour and that was happening out there. Does he carry a couple extra with him, or does he go to the tour band? Because now I was out there, I know how it happened. This was years ago, but I used to do this. So tell them what would happen. So if he's out there and let's say he's just taking a swing once and breaks his hand or something happens, okay, or he's flying over there and something happens, okay, what would happen? So how does this occur with a tour player?
So we always like them to have a backup driver, a bolt built up, so shaft and all.
So it's ready to go.
So hopefully they have that with them and they travel.
So if they're on that practice range and the face blows out or the shaft breaks, the caddy can
go or official can go back to their locker, grab it, and they're good to go. If it happens and they, for whatever reason they don't have their backup with them, which some guys do, and we're like, what are you doing? This is why. But we're there from Monday through Wednesday of practice rounds. So we're there with a tour truck on site, so we can quickly build one up for them there. If it happens during tournament play and they don't have a backup with them, it's a little bit trickier, but that's why our pro tour department is so good at what they do. They can turn that out and get it there for
fast.
8 a.m. the next morning. So that's important. If it happens on a Saturday when no one's here, it's a little tricky.
It's a little tricky here. But you have the exact numbers. I mean, it's to the umpteenth degree. It's not just pulled off the shelf at the Carl's Lane. No, it's exact numbers for them, and you match up exactly.
And that's why testing and traveling with a backup is so important, because you never know when that can then happen. And if you have a backup but you've never really hit it and tested it on TrackMan or Quad or anything, well, it's not really a backup yet, because we don't know if it's doing everything you want. Even they're so precise, and what they like to see is the details are so minute that we want them to hit it to understand if something goes wrong with my gamer or cracks or whatever, they've put some reps on this driver so 100%. They know exactly what it's going to do.
Other thing I want to talk to just for a minute at home, because you'd be the one to talk to about this, but I wrote an article, this was I think a couple of years ago, I called it as a professional, we have 20 club bags, okay? And what I meant by that is I said, I think a lot of players at home think that they use the same clubs every single week and they come in there. And I talked about how they will take clubs in and out. Like if they're going and playing overseas, or if they're going really windy conditions, these might go in or these might come out and so on. Talk about that a little bit, would you? Because I mean, you see driving irons in there, you see added wedges in there, whatever you see in there. Am I right?
For sure.
Okay.
And especially it comes up when they're going over to the Scottish and the Open.
That's why
driving iron is important. But then we're seeing it kind of evolve throughout the bag. This mini driver has been a great option for players where, if they're going to a course where they don't necessarily need a 3-wood into the green of a par 5, then this mini driver becomes a more forgiving secondary tee option. That's not going to go as far as a driver, but it's a larger head than the 3-wood, and it's going to be more forgiving. So, they can spin that maybe around 32, going to stay in play. If they have a bunker that they need to carry 285, but the fairway runs out at 310, mini driver.
Mini driver,
So they know that, and we actually give our players course reports on Monday, and their caddies course reports. So we understand, we study all this historical data from the tournament, and we understand these are specific things that maybe you need to look at for this week. But mini driver is an option. The top of the bag is always something that can change based on what they need. Again, driving irons or long irons, put that in, or put a 7 or 5-wood in, depending on what they're going to need that week. And then the other part of it is wedges and different wedge grinds and bounces, where a lot of guys, it's becoming more and more popular, which I don't know why it's taken so long, but it's really important to have multiple options, because especially tour players are going week to week, different course conditions, and you never know what you're going to need. So I think players are starting to realize that's super important.
And I even see some of the older players, and I know we can talk Champions Tour, but I see the older players that you'll see them when they start playing different greens, all of a sudden they start throwing a different hybrid in there. Like maybe they were carrying a 5-iron, they'll throw a 5 hybrid in there. I mean, there's a big thing online with Fred Couples who talked about throwing these like 7 hybrids in his bag, because and all of a sudden the course he's playing the greens above him, they just got to hit these height and the shots he doesn't have anymore.
You need the height and the spin.
So they're starting to talk about, I play like iron in the wind, and I'm throwing hybrids in there, but it's not in the wind, different things like that. And I know the players do that. I mean, it's a tool in the bag. It's a tool that optimizes the course we're playing, and optimize the tools to get in that course.
And like you said, a lot of guys start the week with maybe 19, 20 clubs. That could be an option, and they dwindle it down.
That's exactly what the article said. They dwindle it down, so when they go out there, and usually they dwindle about 15, and then they look at the caddy going, okay, and then look at the conditions that day. So it really is.
It can be day to day based on wind conditions or wind direction, or even if they see the hole locations or
Right.
something, and they understand. All right, well, there's more front hole locations here, so maybe I need something different.
So any cool tour stories or anything out there? I mean, anything that's interesting or anything you got that any stories you tell these guys at home? I mean, what you do is pretty exciting. I mean, I know you work really hard. You work a lot of hours. I mean, you get to travel some cool places, but it's a lot of traveling. Anytime you throw traveling on there, it's tough. And I know that because when I first started this, and I said, this is going to be cool. We get to go to Phoenix and Orlando and Hawaii for all our golf schools. And all of a sudden realize, man, we're on the road 40 weeks a year.
Oh, man, it's draining. It's draining. But obviously, all of us that do what we do, we're passionate about golf.
Right.
And so, a lot of us are failed professional players. But if we weren't ever going to make it on tour ourselves, the next best thing is working with the best players in the world on tour and helping them get to that next level and accomplish their dreams and goals. So we get close with our staffers. We build a strong bond and we're a part of their team. And so, we go to dinner with these guys on a weekly basis and, swap stories. And we get to know these guys on a very personal level and their personalities.
And I always tell these people, because I practice a lot of them at home. And the course I'm at has a lot of tour players there and I have a lot of good friends. I try to tell the people at home that they're just guys. They're just gals. I mean, there's nothing. They're just. Am I right? I can't share some of the text messages between myself and Xander because the PC would be a problem. But he's like a South Park fan, and so things like that. But it's we get to experience and see a different side of them that maybe the average fan does. But like you said, they're just guys. They're just guys being dudes. They're very talented at what they do, but they're just guys that work really hard and really talented at what they do. But I always say, work really hard at what they do. Because you can't get to that level when you work that hard. Am I right?
Yeah. No. Absolutely. As far as tour stories, I mean, there's stuff that happens every week that kind of blurs together. Let's say, I mean, something cool that just happened recently was Sam Burns and Akshay Bhatia switching into our new driver for the Hero event in the Bahamas. Those guys, they're always slow to switch.
No, any good player is, because this is their bread and butter, especially the better players. I mean, the ones that you guys are seeing on TV. It's hard to switch because they've done very well and made millions off the equipment they've got right now, or they wouldn't be out there on TV. And then they just switch them. It's a big deal.
And we're always a player-first company at Callaway here. We're never going to put equipment in their hands that's going to be worse for them. Even if we pay them a ton of money and we want them to play the new stuff, we're never going to have them sacrifice any part of their game to play new stuff just for that purpose. And so Sam and Akshay are perfect examples of that. Akshay playing a Rogue SD driver for 2-3 years, Sam still in Paradigm. We never forced them into the new equipment, but I think what's so exciting about this time is same thing. We're not forcing them into anything, but they're seeing the performance benefits and performance gains with Elite. And so for them to put that in this early, and there might be some tweaking, but now we've seen on-course data and feedback from them on.
So when you're seeing the best that won't change your drive for a couple of years, all of a sudden they make that change, that's proof in the pudding.
Exactly. I mean, that's validation.
You got all the numbers, you got all the AI numbers, you got all the real world numbers. When you get the guy out there who's your poster boys on this, and they're doing that, and they're making that decision, that's huge.
That's massive. That's huge. That's validation. That's why we're out there ultimately.
That's the ultimate validation.
Is to show that the same equipment that you can buy off the shelves is the same equipment that they're using, and it's working for them. 100%. And so that's the validation. That's why we invest in tour and our players like we do.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.